Hello, my talk today is entitled Small Gods? It's about big gods, medium gods, and small gods. And for my text, I'm going to refer to a book, Small Gods, by Terry Pratchett. Pratchett was a prolific writer who died from Alzheimer's in 2015. Apparently, he was a humanist and an atheist. In an interview noted on Wikipedia, he agreed with the protagonist in his book Nation, who said, "It is better to build a seismograph than to worship the volcano." If you ever read any of his books, that seems a very Terry Pratchett thing to say. However, the nature of gods is brought up in many of his books, and although many contain anthropomorphic gods, he doesn't restrict himself. In the novel The Hogfather, who is a Santa Claus type person, well, the Hogfather is kidnapped, and without being present, people search for other gods. Pratchett postulates that what gods need is believers. With the absence of the Hogfather, strange gods appear. There's the god of plantar warts, and my particular favorite, the god of hangovers. Oh God, my head's killing me. Terry Pratchett puts it this way. There are billions of gods in the world. Most don't come to anything. A handful, though, go on to greater things. Anything may trigger it. A shepherd seeking a lost lamb finds it among the briars and takes a minute or two to build a small cairn of stones in general thanks to whatever spirit might be around the place. Or a peculiarly shaped tree becomes associated with a cure for disease. Or someone carves a spiral on an isolated stone. Because what gods need is belief, and what humans want is gods. Often it stops there, but sometimes it goes further. More rocks are added, more stones are raised, a temple is built on the site where the tree once stood. The god grows in strength, the belief of his worshippers raising it upwards like 1,000 tons of rocket fuel. For very few, the sky's the limit, and sometimes not even that. In collaboration with Neil Gaiman, an American writer, Pratchett wrote Good Omens. It's a story about an angel and a demon and how they balance the fate of the world for centuries. Unfortunately, one of their groups of superiors is considering starting Armageddon. The problem is they seem to have lost or mislaid the Antichrist. This has been made into a series on Prime called Good Omens. I'd really recommend it. The premise of Neil Gaiman's other book, American Gods, is that successive waves of immigrants into the US have brought with them their gods, and for better or not, they live among us. But it's Terry Pratchett's book, Small Gods, I'm exploring today. In this book, the only reason gods exist is because they have believers. The book centers around the activities of the great god Om. There are temples built to the great god. There are priests who tell you how to worship the great god Om. There's an inquisition to stamp out heresy, but in fact, he only has one true believer left, called Brother. That's Brutha. The god himself has been reduced to the size and form of a one-eyed turtle who always has to keep looking over his shoulder for hungry eagles. The great god Om finds Brother and talks to him. This is one of their early dialogues. "How should I know?" said the turtle. "I don't know." "But you're omnicognizant," said Brother. "That doesn't mean I know everything." Oh, yes it does." "You sure?" "Yes. I thought that was omnipotent." No, that means you're all-powerful, and you are. That's what it says in the book of Ossuary. He was one of the great prophets. You know?" "I hope," Brother added. "Who told him I was omnipotent?" "You did." "No, I didn't." "Well, he said you did." "Don't ever remember anyone called Ossuary," the tortoise muttered. "You spoke to him in the desert," said Brother. "You must remember. He was 8 feet tall, with a very long beard and a huge staff, and the glow of the holy horns shining out of his head." He hesitated, but he'd seen the statues and the holy icons. They couldn't be wrong. "Never met anyone like that," said the small god Om. "Maybe he was a bit shorter," Brother conceded. Ossuary, said the tortoise. No, I can't say. He said that you spoke to him from out of a pillar of flame," said Brother. "Oh, that Ossuary," said the tortoise. "Pillar of flame, yes. And you dictated him the book of Ossuary," said Brother, "which contains the directions, the gateways, the abjurations, and the precepts. 193 chapters. "Oh, I don't think I did all that," said Om doubtfully. "I'm sure I would have remembered 193 chapters. "What did you say to him then?" "Well, as far as I can remember, it was Hey, see what I can do, said the tortoise. Brother stared at it. It looked embarrassed to send so far as it's possible for a tortoise. Well, even gods like to relax, it said. Hundreds of thousands of people live their lives by the abjurations and the precept. Well, I'm not stopping them, said Om. If you didn't dictate them, who did? Don't ask me. I'm not omnicognizant. Brother was shaken with anger. And the prophet Abbess, I suppose someone just happened to give him the codicils, did they? Well, it wasn't me. They're written on slabs of lead 10 feet tall. Oh, well, it must have been, yes. I always have a ton of lead slabs around in case I meet someone in the desert, yes. But if you didn't give them to, who did? I don't know. Why should I know? I can't be everywhere at once. You're omnipresent. Who says so? The prophet Hashimi. Never met the man. Oh, so I suppose you didn't give him the book of creation then? What book of creation? You mean you don't know? No. Then who gave it to them? I don't know. Perhaps he wrote it himself. Brother put his hand over his mouth in horror. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What? Brother removed his hand. I said that's blasphemy. Blasphemy? How can I blaspheme? I'm a god. The great god Om and his last one true believer brother go on a pilgrimage to find out more about gods. They end up in Ephebi. It's a sort of Athens, with a population of philosophers living with a strange political system. Terry Pratchett calls it democracy. This is another conversation they had with the philosophers. Ask them about gods, Om prompted. I want to find out about gods, said brother. Philosophers looked at one another. Gods, said Zeno, we don't bother with gods. Huh, relics of an outmoded belief system, gods. There was a rumble of thunder in the clear evening sky. Except for blind Io, the thunder god, Zeno went on, his tone hardly changing. Lightning flashed across the sky. And Cubal, the fire god, said Zeno. A gust of wind rattled the windows. Flatulus, the god of winds, he's all right too, said Zeno. An arrow materialized out of the air and hit the table by Zeno's hand. FedEx, the messenger of the gods, one of the all-time greats, said Zeno. The philosophers looked very embarrassed. Then Ibid said, Forgol, the god of avalanches, where's the snow line? 200 miles away, said someone. They waited. Nothing happened. Relic of an outmoded belief system, said Zeno. A wall of freezing white death did not appear anywhere in Ephebi. Mere unthinking personification of a natural force, said one of the philosophers in a louder voice. They all seemed to feel a lot better about this. Primitive nature worship. Wouldn't give you tuppence for him. Simple rationalization of the unknown. Ha! A clever fiction, a bogey to frighten the weak and stupid. The words rose up in brother. He couldn't stop himself. Is it always this cold, he said. It seemed very chilly on my way here. The philosophers all moved away from Zeno. As the pilgrimage continues, there's one point in the desert where Om, the turtle, cannot allow himself any sleep. He has to stay awake to fend off the ghosts of the thousands of gods who've lost their believers and want brother to believe in them. After many adventures, the pair makes it back to civilization. Om's godlike status is elevated, but I'll leave that for you to read. So, is Terry Pratchett right? Do gods only exist when they have believers? What comes first, gods or believers? To try to answer this, I found an article. It was a review of a paper published in the journal Nature in 2019. And it was entitled, Complex Societies Precede Moralizing Gods Throughout World History. Now that's quite a statement. So what does it mean, and what information did they access to assert this claim? Well, the data they have comes from something called the Seshat Global History Data Bank. Seshat, spelled S-E-S-H-A-T, is the name of the ancient Egyptian goddess of wisdom, knowledge, and writing. And this is an international scientific research project. The organizers of this project contend that the massive data they are accumulating can be subjected to a scientific approach to test a variety of competing hypotheses about the rise and fall of large-scale societies. In other words, it is gathering historical data. Now that the database is ready for analysis, it is available to test a long list of theories about global history. The hypothesis of the paper is that there are thousands of gods, or have had thousands or millions of believers, but they can be divided into two main groups. The first group is what we would probably call the local gods. They're the gods of the field, the house, the harvest, the hunt, and they're essentially non-moralizing. However, the world's major religions, the second group, are to different degrees moralizing gods. They can punish or reward you. They tend to be omnipresent, omnipotent, and omnicognizant, just like the great god Om is supposed to be. It has been argued that moralizing gods were necessary for the rise of complex societies. In small societies, it's almost impossible to engage in antisocial behavior without being caught and punished. But as societies grew larger and interactions between strangers became more commonplace, a system of surveillance was required. And what better way to do this than to come up with an omnipresent God who can see inside people's minds and issue punishments and rewards accordingly? Believing in such a God might make people think twice about stealing or reneging on deals. Also, if you and I believe in the same moralizing deity, you might be more likely to do business with me than somebody whose religion is unknown to you. Simply wearing insignia such as body markings, tattoos, or jewelry alluding to belief in such a God might have helped. The paper claimed to show that the moralizing religions followed the development of big societies and did not precede them. But bigger societies grow from smaller ones. So did the gods grow with them and expand their relationship and become more noticeable in the same way a business or maybe a sports franchise would expand, or did they do it some other way? In other words, like Terry Pratchett proposes, maybe gods depend on believers, not the other way around. And there, of course, I should have stopped looking, but I couldn't resist researching the original paper, not just the review where I first found this information. I opened the paper, published in Nature, and found it had been retracted. The authors accept the criticism, but claim the error was in the statistics, not in the substance. But I couldn't find where they had republished, although that was their apparent intent. And then I thought about this a bit more. And one of the problems with this data collection at Sechat is if you look at our own recent history, some or even most of it, the data is likely to be subjective. After all, there's the saying, history belongs to the victors, which of course I then couldn't resist looking up. And the statement, history belongs to the victors, is often associated with Winston Churchill. However, it's incorrectly associated because similar words were spoken after the Battle of Culloden in the 18th century and multiple times since then. In fact, Missouri Senator George Vest said in 1891, "For history is written by the victors and framed according to the prejudices and bias existing on their side." So I could see where these authors could be criticized and the limitations of Sechat questioned. And this now retracted paper doesn't really answer the question of who came first, gods or humanity, or who needs whom. So maybe that's up to you. And how do you measure subjectivity in history, and how much, if any, applies to the study's findings? I'm sure that's been the starting point for a few dozen history PhDs. So maybe Sechat will help figure that all out. So I'd like to close with the final words from Terry Pratchett. I believe in the same God that Einstein did. And it's just possible that once you've got past all the gods that we have created, with big beards and many human traits, just beyond all that, on the other side of physics, there just may be the ordered structure from which everything flows. Thank you.